Good morning, afternoon, or evening. I am Evo Rey, and welcome back to my podcast, Que Chilerísimo. Alright, let's dive into this new entry for the series, Bitácoras. The goal is to keep it between 30 to 40 minutes. The last one was 50 minutes. So I'll try my best to keep it between 30 to 40 minutes. So let us get started with the overview of last week. Today is July 28th, 2025. I'm still 20 years old. And let us go back to this past Monday, July 21st. The biggest thing that happened here is that I saw one of my video games. Now, you might be asking, why is this really relevant? And the easy answer to that is that the games that I have, which is a bunch, I think I have like 10, 12 games, disc games, that is, that are just sitting there. They are collecting dust. Maybe I used to play them a lot back when, we were in lockdown on when the pandemic was happening. But now they're just sitting there collecting dust. And as time passes, more and more and more, I'm just losing interest on video games altogether. They're fun. I'm not gonna deny that. I'm not gonna deny that sometimes all I want to do the whole day is just play video games. However, that is not really helping me in the path I'm trying to follow. So I'm trying to catch them all. If you guys are interested, hit me up in the comments. And with that cash, my plan is to inject it back into the broker account to double it. Simple as that. And talking about the broker account, let's go into my Tuesday, July 22nd, where I did my first trade on the Standard & Poor's 500 of the United States, which is an ETF or an exchange trading fund. And what that means is basically that it is an index that tracks the 500 biggest companies in the United States. So just to give an idea, that index, the SPY, that's its abbreviation, especially on trades, is like a basket that has a lot of eggs on it, right? Now, some eggs are bigger than other eggs, but there's 500 altogether, So it's the basket, 500 eggs, all different sizes, but they all fit on the basket. The bigger the egg, the more presence it has on that basket, on that index, on that ETF. So that's the best way to explain it. You can find companies like Google, Meta, Microsoft, Tesla, Netflix, what else? Apple, Nvidia, Palantir, which all these are companies that I usually trade. Amazon is one of also the big seven too. So it's a whole basket that tracks how the overall market of the United States is going. Because usually what affects the whole market when it comes to news or political action in the economy, that affects that index, but it doesn't affect it directly. It affects the economy, the market where all these companies are interacting with their clients, with their associates, with their rivals. It changes the whole game for them. And usually most of the market kind of has similar reactions to particular moves in the economy. So that's kind of like a little explanation of how that ETF, the SPY, works. So I bought a call. For the ones that don't know what call is, it's a type of contract that comes from the options of the stock. So you have the stock, right? Which is, or in this case, not the stock, but the ETF. You have the ETF, SPY, right? So if you're going to buy a trade, or if you want to do trading, ideally you don't want to buy the ETF, because if its price is like 640 and it goes 645 and then you sell it, you're only gonna win $5. And you might say, okay, but still $5. Well, you had to make an investment of $640 just to get $5. That is not ideal in the short term. It is ideal when you're looking at the long term, if you're trying to just beat inflation, which is crazy these days, if you know what I mean. So my first trade was on the SPY, and as I was saying, I don't buy the ETF, I buy options from the ETF. And these and what this means is that I'm basically buying a derivative from the stock, from the ETF, and I'm using something called leverage. So leverage is just a term that it is used as it means. You invest something, but the purchasing power of that amount that you invested gets multiplied by 10, by 100, by 200. So let's say you invest 0.30 cents. Because of leverage, those 0.3 cents or $0.3, if you want to look at it that way. If you use leverage for it, then what happens is that it's not going to cost you $0.3. If it has a leverage of 100 times 100, then you're purchasing for $30. So that's $0.3 times 100. That is the $30. However, if that option were to move the way you want it to move, then it will still use that leverage. So every dollar move in the market actually might represent $100 because of leverage. So you're investing something, but its purchasing power gets a really crazy boost, so that you can make higher profits with a lower initial investment. And there's two types of options, one that is calls and one that is puts. A option that is a type call, it's basically saying that you're expecting the market to go up, and you're gonna set a strike with an expiration date, and a strike is just a mark of you saying by this time the ETF or the stock, the price of the ETF or the stock is gonna hit that strike, is gonna hit that mark. If it hits that mark or it gets closer because of the leverage, you might get your 100% back of your initial investment. If it goes past it, then that's where you start getting those crazy profits of 200,000, of no, 200%, 300%, 400%. And there's no limit, honestly, to how much you can win with those type of moves, because the US market is the most volatile. Volatile. I think that's how I said. It's the craziest market that is out there with huge moves, and that's why traders do the most money in the US market. Although they also trip the most in the US market, and I'm gonna explain how that happened to me. So I bought a call on Tuesday for a 1 day expiration. That was about it. That was about my Tuesday on these. If my life could be a little bit more exciting, yes, it could be. However, it's time to lock in, right? Sometimes when you're locking in, your life is just gonna be boring, and you're not gonna have much to talk about. But it's not really what. It's not really about what you're doing in front of everybody, but it is what you're doing while nobody's watching. And keep in mind, I'm not, you know, telling you about my whole day. I'm just telling you like the highlights of my day. And I'm not counting, the gym, for example, which I go every single day. Because it's like, cool, I went to the gym. Like I cannot be doing that. I cannot just be throwing like my whole life out there. I'm just gonna throw the most important thing, the one that relates most to where I'm going. But those tiny details where I am going at 10 a.m., 11 a.m., 12 p.m., 1 p.m. Nobody wants to know all that. All the things that I'm doing throughout the day, that's just for me. But this is the most important stuff that maybe you guys could learn a little bit from. And honestly, when I listen to this back, because I do listen to my own podcast, I know I'm not a narcissist. I'm just trying to be better. I'm just trying to improve the way I speak to you guys, how everything flows, maybe sometimes the quality as well. I'm just trying to become better every time so that I cannot waste your time and I keep quality over quantity in this podcast zone. July 23rd, Wednesday. And yes, we sold the options I bought. I got a 60% return on my investment from that SPY, from that index. And it felt pretty good. Making money just clicking a few buttons. I'm living the dream. I am really living the dream. I made money from the comfort of my home. And the best part is that while I was making money, I was also going to work. So I got to work as a waiter at the San Antonio Riverwalk, which is a super chill place. If you guys want to check it out, I totally recommend it. So I worked there as a waiter, and guess what? While I was working my shift at the San Antonio Riverwalk, I was generating 60% of my initial investment for that contract that I bought. Again, living the dream, because as I was working, I was generating probably what I was making the whole day. I was generating that without doing anything. So basically, as I was working, I was getting paid double. That's the power of trading. But here's the interesting part. So that was my Wednesday. Now my Thursday, July 24th. I made my second trade on GLD, which is gold. It tracks, it is an index or an ETF, one of the two, that tracks the price of gold and the market of gold. However, on this second trade, I did something wrong. I let my emotions cloud my judgment. And why is that? I saw my setup on this specific trade, and I was like, I gotta take it. However, I saw an very, very weird movement within the hours I was watching this ETF. And I knew in my head that I shouldn't have invested on this ETF because of those moves, even though overall the strategy was in its place. So, what was the deal breaker on deciding whether or not to purchase or to purchase this ETF, this option? I purchased it because I got FOMO, which is fear of missing out. Since I was still like on the hype that I had made a good profit from last day, I was like, I cannot not take this trade, you know? So I was like, let me take it. Because the strategy is there and I wanna be there when the profit hits my bank account. So that was my Thursday. Now let's go to my Friday, July 25. And yes, you do not trade with emotions, you trade with a strategy. And I had to pay for the broken glass. I lost 2/3 of my broker account, including some of the profits that I had previously made because I didn't stay disciplined on trading. And that was from the GLD or the gold trade that I did. I could have freaked out, but I was like, you know what? I deserved it because I didn't follow what my mentor had taught me during the summer, which is just trade based on strategies, not based on emotion. So I was like, you know what? Cool experience. It won't happen again. It probably will happen, but the goal is to keep it the fewest times. So after that, I took my puppy to his grooming. Um, they left him really handsome. Then after that, we went with family to downtown and had a great time. And I unintentionally convinced the next guest to do an interview in the podcast. So watch out for the next episode on the main series of this podcast. Then we have July 26th. I went to work. No trades were made during this day because the market only operates from Monday through Friday. And I noticed that the logo of this podcast is misspelled because it says que chilerisimo instead of que chilerísimo. So I'm working on fixing the logo and making it a little bit more cool, I guess. So be in the lookout for that. Then we have my Sunday, which was July 27th. I woke up early to help sell breakfast for a church group that my parents attend, and I really enjoyed it. It was a great way for me to finish up the week, providing some help because they really needed it. And I got to, interact with some of the people I know from church. I also got to meet new people that I didn't know from my church. And it was awesome. I went to mass, then went to help out, and then I, got out. And on that same day, I went to work because they called me up. And as I told you guys, I'm in a position where I could, use any type of income that I can get, because I have a vision and I know that, working all these jobs is just temporary. And by doing so, it is definitely going to help me to gain more experience in the workforce, but also to start building up my capital that not only I am going to use for trading, but also for a business, because I do want to be a business owner one day. In what niche? I have no idea, but I feel like I'll find out sooner than later. So that was my overview of the week. So let's get straight into the lessons for this week specifically. My first lesson of this week, and I think I had mentioned this one last week, but it just came up again this week. And it is that you gotta trust God and that He has everything under control. And then it also says, don't waste your precious today for something that could happen tomorrow or never. So what do I mean by this? You gotta trust that God has control over everything. If you're doing everything you're supposed to do, then God is gonna take care of the rest. God has control. God is gonna put you in the places where you need to be. Maybe not the ones you want to be, but the ones you need to be. For growth, for reflection, for a reset, maybe. There could be a lot of stuff, a lot of explanations that He has to make such changes, And why do I say it is not worth it to waste your precious today for something that could happen tomorrow or never? So, as a kid, if you were given a gift, right, for Christmas, let's say, you were given this little box wrapped around, snowman wrap with a little bow, green bow or blue bow that is very shiny. What are you gonna do when you get that present? Of course, you're gonna try to open it. You're gonna rip the whole wrap and start playing with the toy or with whatever was your present. You're gonna start playing with it. Or when you get your present, and if you're a kid, would you just leave it on the wrap because you're scared you can break it, or because it can, you know, malfunction later or tomorrow? Of course not. As a kid, you just want to open it, play with it as much as you can, be happy as much as you can, and if it breaks, oh well. But in that moment, when you're receiving that present, you're not thinking whether it's gonna break tomorrow or the next day or the next day. All you want to do is enjoy the moment with that present that you got. And that's what I'm talking about here. We don't want to waste our today, which has enough problems on its own. We don't want to waste it by trying to worry and solve problems that don't even exist yet. Tomorrow is going to take care of itself. Enjoy today. The blessings, the challenges, enjoy it. Because tomorrow is going to arrive. But the present, sadly to say, is slipping out of your hands. Just like when you're trying to pick water with your hand, it's just not going to stay there. It's gonna slip away. So my best advice: enjoy your today. Do something today that makes you really happy. And if you have problems, if you have issues, if you have challenges that you have to conquer, trust God. Trust that God will give you the tools, or has given you the tools, to take those challenges down. You know, like David versus Goliath, all the odds were against him, yet he won with just a rock and a sling. Or it wasn't a slingshot, a rock and a slingshot. Just then. So moving on to the next lesson I learned this week. I was actually listening to The Diary of a CEO by Stephen Bartlett with Alex Hormozi, which, for the ones that do not know who Alex Hormozi is, he is an entrepreneur, investor, and author best known for helping businesses scale, especially in the fitness and service industries. That's his niche. He built and sold several companies, most notably Gym Launch, which helped struggling gyms become profitable. After achieving financial success, he and his wife co-founded Acquisition.com, a company that invests in and grows other businesses, particularly those doing over $3 million in revenue. He is also known for his educational content on business sales and mindset, which he shares through books like $100 million Offers and $100 million Leads, as well as on social media and YouTube, where he's gained a large following for his no fluff tactical advice. And as I was hearing these two brilliant minds kind of discuss what it takes to start a business, something really caught my attention. And it is the Hormozis graph of the entrepreneur. What is this graph? I'll make sure to pop it right here. So basically, it describes in the easiest ways the main stages that an entrepreneur goes through when he or she is starting a business. So we have the first stage, which is called uninformed optimism. This stage, what it means is that maybe you get an idea, maybe you get inspiration. Let's say dropshipping back in 2021 when it was hot still. You saw a video or a reel or a YouTube video, or your friend told you about it, and they showed you how they made millions of dollars because of e-commerce through dropshipping. And you're like, that sounds super cool. And then the reel goes, or the video goes saying, here's how you do it, or here's a video how to do it, here's the step by step, and you're hooked. And you're like, you know what? I really want to do this. I think this could work. So for the first weeks of starting this journey as an entrepreneur, this journey of dropshipping, let's say in this case, a few weeks passes by and you're getting really hyped because you really feel that this could change your life. And as you're getting hyped, you're trying to collect as much information as possible, which leads you to the next stage, which is informed pessimism. That means that once you accumulate all that information and all the things you need to start your dropshipping store, you really get hit with all these very detailed aspects that it takes to start a store that you didn't account for at the very beginning of your journey. And that erases all the initial hype that you had and brings down any type of motivation that you could have to keep going and keep building that business idea. So this point is interesting because there's two paths after the following stage, which is crisis of meaning. So once you got a few weeks of hype of a business idea, then you get the information and you're starting to really doubt whether you can pull it off or not. You get into a crisis of meaning, which is just basically you sitting in your room or in your living room or sitting somewhere alone saying, damn, should I? Should I really start this? When I thought it was just A to B, which seemed pretty easy at the moment, but I had no idea before I got to the B that I had to go through 8.1, 8.2, 8.3, 8.4, all the way to 8.100 before I got to the B's. And even when I got to the B's, in order to complete the B, I still had to do B.1, B.2, B.3, all the way to B.200. You had no idea. And now you're debating. Well, it's a lot of opportunity, a lot of good money if I get into the business. But then the other side. But it's a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of hard work just to get my first sale on my dropshipping store. So you got this crisis of meaning where you had to make a decision. You play the ball or you go about your day. So let's go into the worst case scenario. You completely leave the idea and you're like, you know what, maybe this is not for me because it is too complicated. So here's what happens. After 6 months, you're gonna crash and burn. And what does that mean? If you keep going in that business for a few months, by around 6 months after you have your crazy crisis of meaning, you're gonna decide, you know what, this is not for me. However, I saw this new business idea, maybe this could work. This is a really dangerous spot to be at. Because what Alex Hormozi was talking about in this side of his graph is that it is a loop. That once you get from the beginning to the end, from being hyped to crashing and burning, you're gonna just jump to the next idea. So if dropshipping didn't work, and it's not much that it didn't work, but you didn't want to put the effort to make it work, then what you're gonna try and do is, because you still have the idea to start a business, you're just gonna get and try to get the next business idea that you have on the internet, and then you're gonna repeat the whole cycle just for the next 6 months, and then you're gonna go back to square one to try to find another business model, and you're gonna keep doing the same, jumping between niches, jumping between ideas, and never coming to a stop where you actually make progress in a business. Now let's focus on the best side, on the good side. You have the crisis of meaning, but you decide, you know what, I'm doing this regardless. I don't have the motivation, but I have my why. And this is what I was talking about in, I'm pretty sure it was my first episode on the main series of the podcast. I was really emphasizing on why is so critical to have a why and not to rely on motivation, because motivation will wear off, but your why will not. And yeah, I did not want to record the podcast because I was feeling lazy, I was feeling tired, but I remember my why. And my why was just enough to get me in front of you guys and to talk about all this knowledge that I have accumulated and to share with the world, and at the same time try to understand it on a deeper meaning. So moving forward, if after the crisis of meaning, after that stage, you're like, I am gonna carry this through. Let's see where it goes. I have my why. Let me continue. And you continue for a couple more months and you gain more information, more knowledge, more experience on that business. And you get to the next stage, which is informed optimism, which is ideal for success. Because now you got all the information and you're getting hyped again. You're having positive thoughts that, damn, this idea could really work. Because I've learned this and I'm applying this new thing and it's working as it should. And that sets you up really nicely for the final stage, which is achievement. And that's beautiful. I do gotta say, this usually takes around 5 years of just going at it in one single business to achieve success. If you're doing everything you're supposed to do, if you're doing things right, then it'll take you around 5 years. There's some people who are the exception that get it in a short period of time, but the average is 5 years. 5 years is a long time, honestly. And that's why it is just easier to go the other side of the graph, which is this vicious cycle of jumping around your whole life, just moving around. Because moving is not the same as progress. You can move everything you want and still stay at the same spot. And this applies to a lot of things in life. So focus on progress. Make sure you dig deep to find your why as to why you're doing the business, why you want to succeed, why you must succeed in this business. And then expect a long journey, but a journey that has an end. A journey that will be successful if you keep working at it. So that was the lesson right there. And we got our last lesson of the week, which is to not pretend. Just do your best and the reward will come to you sooner or later. Let's break the first part down. Do not pretend. And that just means what it sounds like. Do not try to fit in. Do not. Do not try to be normal. Do not try to be like everybody else. You're special in a lot of ways. You are an awesome human being with a beautiful personality. And there's no greater shame. There's no worst waste than when you leave that amazing personality just to become somebody that people want to see. No. That's not what you should be doing. You should not pretending to be somebody who you're not. Because I could tell you, right now, I am being 100% myself. And when I look back at, these episodes, when I analyze how I talk and the content I provide, I'm like, man, I wish I could have at least of an accent. I wish I could talk a little cooler. I wish I could look more like that guy. Or articulate my sentences and words better like her. No, that's just not it. Do not try to be somebody who you're not. Be you, but be the best you. Now, me telling you that you should not pretend to be somebody else is not the same as me telling you that you should stay the same. No, we are creatures who have the capabilities to improve. Every single day we have the opportunities, the challenges that help us grow every single day, and we gotta take them. We gotta take them. Not to be somebody else that we're not, but to make our strengths stronger and our weaknesses stronger, or weaknesses weaker. Yeah, I think that sounds better. We gotta make our strengths stronger and our weaknesses weaker. Now, is the aim to achieve perfection? Of course not. The aim is just to be the best version you can be. Knowing that whoever you are at the end of the day, that whatever you've done at the end of the day, God is still gonna love you. And if you're sure of that, then there's nothing else in the world that matters. So do not pretend. Be the best you can be of you, not somebody else, of yourself. Be the best version of yourself, because that's the version I would love to see. The best version of you. Because you, as you are beautiful, you're great. So I cannot imagine how much admiration and how much I'm gonna get impressed when I meet that new version of you that I know you can achieve. So don't pretend, just do your best, be the best version of yourself, and the reward will come to you sooner or later. Sometimes we do things to impress others, to get recognition from others. But you gotta cut yourself some slack. Because most of the time, the things we do, even though they're super great, they still gonna leave you feeling a little empty sometimes. Because most of the times, if you do something for yourself that benefits you, you have that satisfaction. That's the reward. But then you see all these influencers getting recognized by the whole world because of everything they're doing, because how much of an influence they have built around themselves in the community. However, not everybody has the recognitions, and even those influencers at the beginning, they didn't have the recognition. They could only get this in a sort of way, only this satisfaction that they were doing the right thing. Nobody was telling them that they were doing the right thing. Probably nobody's going to tell you that you're doing the right thing. In a sort of way, you just have to keep doing the right thing and be satisfied that you're doing it for you, to become better, to, keep building that life that you want for yourself in the future, that you want for your family in the future. You just want to, I guess, reward yourself. And believe me, the reward that you're working towards, maybe it is financial goal, maybe it is a business goal, maybe it is a career goal, a health goal, a spiritual goal, that the reward you achieving that goal will come sooner or later. Be sure of that. So just keep working at it. Hold on to your why and keep working at it. Because I know that the best version of you, and let me correct myself, you, as you are right now, I know that you can achieve whatever you put yourself up to. So those were my little 3 lessons that I learned this week. Hopefully you find them as helpful as I do. And now we're gonna talk about the difficult part. As you guys saw on the last episode of this series, I set myself some expectations, and I'm afraid to admit that I let myself down. I definitely did. Even though I make my very first trade, even though I stay consistent at the gym, I still let myself down because I didn't spend the time I wanted to doing intentional spiritual time. I didn't finish reading all the books I said I was going to read. And I didn't work so much into growing this podcast, into researching what could boost the quality and content of this podcast, and some of the other, things that are related to this podcast and to what I'm trying to build for the future. And I think the main reason for why most of these failed, or I failed to complete, it's because I didn't have an accountability system. I kind of just talked about them, and that was it. They just stay in the back of my mind most of the time during the whole week, but I didn't have no accountability. I had no accountability system that could keep me in check. So here's what we're gonna do this upcoming week. Not only I wanna try an accountability system that is very simple. It's just setting a couple reminders on an app that I just downloaded to track my habits. And also something else that I'm gonna change is separating my non-negotiables from my negotiables, and within those negotiables try to prioritize. So my non-negotiables, I mean stuff and things that I have to do no matter what. And my mentor talked about this when he's like, there are certain things throughout your day that you must complete without excuses. You gotta complete them to keep progressing every single day. So in the areas of my life, I think those non-negotiables will be going to the gym, staying active. That will cover the health aspect as well as, keeping a balanced diet. Then we have the spiritual one, and I was talking about that intentional time with God. And now more than ever, I really, really think that putting it from an expectation to a non-negotiable is really gonna switch the gear on that. Okay, so I think those will be my 2 non-negotiables, and doing trading. I think that's also a non-negotiable because that's basically just my career in this moment. the thing that I'm trying to develop the skill. So that covers that aspect of my life. Those are my non-negotiables, my three non-negotiables, I think. So it will be my health, my spiritual time, and then keep developing the skill on trading. My expectations for the upcoming week from my negotiables, if you will, and these will be I guess, I want to read from top priority to lower priority. I think the top priority is to finish my mentor's book for trading. I still gotta review some of the strategies that he has given me on those books that could actually boost my game on trading, and it could give me a higher winning rate when it comes to that. Then after that, I gotta start a journal to document and track all the trades that I've done. I think that is the best way to, in a sort of way, backtest and see in what scenarios it works, what scenarios doesn't, and to have a deeper understanding on how to predict where the market is gonna go in different scenarios, in different stocks or ETFs. My third, I think, will be starting an Instagram detox to optimize my time productivity and focus on what really matters. I think I spend about 3 to 4 hours, if not 5 hours, every single day just dumb scrolling, and I could really use those hours doing something else. Especially working on this podcast. So my goal is to do that. To delete Instagram, which is a distraction right now. I'm not using it for anything else. I'm just gonna delete it and then use that time to keep searching, to keep improving, not myself, but also everything, all the projects I'm doing when it comes to trading, when it comes to my physical health, when it comes to my spiritual time, when it comes to this podcast. I think three expectations are just enough for the week. And I hope to see some changes. So yeah, that is everything I have for today. And maybe, honestly, I feel like a little off right now, but I think I gotta fix my sleeping schedule, and I think that's doing that Instagram detox is really gonna help me get more sleep and a better sleep. So that'll be the end of this episode of this series, Bitácoras. Thank you for watching. I'm really glad we're doing this journey together, and in a sort of way that I'm not doing it alone. So, hope you guys have a blessed week, and I can only pray that you guys succeed at whatever you guys do. So, have a good day, afternoon, or evening. I am Ray. Thank you for watching my podcast, Que Chilerísimo. Hope to see you next week. Ciao.